Well, it's, I have to do it for social media examiner every week, like twice. So
Oh, right. Yeah.
it's I'm getting ready to launch a little mini course on how I do this to everywhere because I think some people
Smart.
might want to do that. So
Yeah. Well,
okay, we got a minute left.
I'll be your evangelist for that.
Okay, great. That'd be awesome. So yeah, it's a little service and it streams everywhere and it's doing Wirecast and stuff. So we're gonna go live. Well, it's I have to do it for here we go. Turn that off. There we go. So many buttons. Okay, 1 minute and we'll go. Thanks for everybody who are here watching us on Crowdcast. Make sure that you ask your questions, and we are going to start right at the top of the hour here with Rebekah Radice. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we already have a couple questions, so I'll make sure to get to those questions at the end of the show. There's a really good one by Jack, so we will answer that. So in about 15 seconds, we should be going live on Facebook. So hello, folks. Welcome to the Manly Pinterest Tips Show. I'm Jeff C., and you're not. Now, are you struggling with the performance of your social posts? Is your visual marketing maybe missing the mark a little bit? Do you feel like maybe it's time for a brand refresh? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then today's show is for you. But first, have you downloaded my free Manly Pinterest Tips Tackle Box? It's chock full of some of my favorite resources for creating images and productivity. Go to manlypinteresttips.com, click on the big red tackle box, and check it out. Well, I'm very excited to have my friend Rebekah Radice back on the show today. And I've been following and been a fan of Rebekah ever since I started on social. And I think I first found her on Google+. Yes, that was a thing that we all were doing. So if you don't know who Rebekah is the Chief Marketing Officer of Post Planner and the founder of Radiant LA, a premier training and development firm helping growth-driven leaders make radical shifts in digital marketing to blow the lid off past revenue milestones. She's obsessive over emerging tech, AI, and all things geek. Rebekah, thanks so much for being back on the show today.
Thank you for having me. As I said to you yesterday, there's not a moment that we can't get in a room together, get on camera together, and just have a blast. So I'm excited.
It's good. We didn't get to talk because I know you were doing so much stuff during the Social Media Marketing World Conference, and you were like, you came in and you had a packed room. I mean, that was a huge room, and you packed it out. So it was very, very cool how many people were there. But we didn't get to talk as much as we want to. But I have some great questions for you today. So let's just jump right into it. And if you guys have any questions for Rebekah today in our live audience, make sure to ask your questions in the sidebar here in Crowdcast, and we will try to get to those during the show. Because I can only monitor one place, and so I'm monitoring Crowdcast. So if you're over on Facebook and the other places, jump over to Crowdcast, ask your question, and we'll get in on that. So, okay, you have a book out, which is very, very cool, and you talk a lot about strategy in your book. And I've known a lot of disorganized marketers. I'm kind of one of them. We want to try everything, every shiny new toy. So when you create a strategy for a new business, is it across multiple channels, or do you really try to focus on one area before you move to something else?
It's a great question. And obviously, it's going to be a little bit different depending on the size of that company, really what their goals are, and, dependent, again, what their bandwidth is. So how many people do they have on their team that are going to be able to manage this social media strategy? But if you're a small business, an entrepreneur, you absolutely need to focus your energy on those channels where your audience is actually spending their time. And like you said, I think too often we get caught up in the latest and greatest. We get caught up in what's hot right now instead of focusing on, where is my audience actually comfortable? Where are they hanging out? And doing our due diligence before that. So yeah, it would definitely be starting there, researching where your audience is spending their time, and not where you're most comfortable, because I think that's the other piece that we can get confused with, which is, hey, I really like spending my time over here on Periscope, but oh, wait a second, my audience isn't over there. So you're spinning your wheels, putting a whole lot of time and effort into something that really isn't pushing you forward. So first of all, researching where your audience is spending their time, and you can do that in a multitude of different ways. First of all, just ask. You can ask them on social media, you can email them, so many different ways. Surveys, SurveyMonkey is great for that. Just saying, hey guys, I'm really looking to spend more time on social media, maybe expand my brand, and would love to know, where are you spending your time hanging out and interacting, not just with your friends, but with those brands that you follow as well. And then once you know that, it's, to your point, really mastering maybe one or two social networks before you move on. And I think that's another mistake a lot of people make, is to jump into and think, I've got to do it all.
Right, right.
And take on 5, 6, 7 different social networks. And then before you know it, you're totally overwhelmed and wondering why you're exhausted at the end of the day, at the end of the week. So really dig in, learn everything you can about Facebook, about Twitter before you move on, and then start to add those additional pieces in, and it's going to be so much easier, not only on yourself, but so much easier for you to create something sustainable that is going to grow with you over time.
So when, let's say, there's a local flower shop, and you mentioned some of those, doing some surveys and stuff. Is there a certain network you like have them maybe look at first? Like, since there's so many eyeballs on Facebook, is that something you would kind of point them at? Look at this one, and then maybe look at some of the other ones. Or do you always like start with one, or does it not matter and you just need to go where your audience is?
Well, I think there's a couple of answers to that. First of all, there's no doubt that Facebook is still the big boy on the block.
Right.
That's where the majority of people are most comfortable. They're talking to not only their friends and family, but they're connecting with brands, with companies, with local companies that they like to keep up with. So Facebook, yes, I think there's so much opportunity in your ability to really get out in front of a very large audience. I know we talk a lot about the Facebook algorithm and the fact that we can't organically get out there in front of people. Yes, you can. And there are very inexpensive ways to boost your visibility out there in Facebook. So Facebook is always my top go-to, because almost every industry, every vertical has an audience that they can find on Facebook. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And the amazing ability to target people with ads, even for a small amount of money. There's a couple people I listen to, is Holly Homer and Rachel Miller, and they're even talking about spending $4 on a boosted post and see and that gives people results, and they can see what's working to pour more money on. So it's very, very cool. I really like the targeting. So there's this famous quote by Steve Martin that goes, be so good that they can't ignore you. And you also talk in your book about outshining the competition. So social is becoming really, really crowded. So how can we or businesses stand out in that crowded marketplace?
Yeah, it is a crazy world, isn't it, that we're living in these days? And I think that's probably one of the number one questions, no matter the size of your business, is how do I continue to get my message out there in a way that resonates with my audience, and also in a way that positions my business for growth opportunity. So no matter what you're looking to make those connections for, maybe you're selling a product, maybe you are a local business, every single person out there has a story to share. We all have a story to tell. And I think at this point, we definitely recognize, especially as marketers, that sharing that unique story it completely changes the conversation. So first of all, really getting clear on what is it that makes you unique? What is it that forced you to do what you're doing? What is it that causes you to jump out of bed every day and be so excited to get the opportunity to do exactly what it is that you do? And all of us have those unique moments, whether they're those moments in our lives where we were working in big corporate and we decided to move over to entrepreneurism, or
Right.
we opened our local, cycling shop because we were just avid cyclists, whatever the case is. It's just really figuring out what is that story and how can you share it in a compelling way, in a way that makes your readers, your audience, your social media audience just go, wow, I totally get that. I totally relate to that. I've been there. So really helping them understand better who you are, what you're all about, and then how you help, most importantly. So, it's taking, and I've put a formula together, and it's pretty simple, but it allows you to craft that story into a very compelling bio and about. You can really take it and put it everywhere across social media. So first of all, it's figuring out what are those problems that you solve. So think about the top 3 things that people come to you for. What do they hire you for? When they're searching for you, what is that solution that they desperately need from you? And then think about 2 to 3 things that make you unique, like I was talking about. What are those key differentiators that just make you uniquely you, that you do better than anybody else? And I know sometimes it's hard for people to pat yourself on the back and say, woohoo,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really great at this. Yeah. But this is a good time for you to do that, to really think about, what is it that I know without a shadow of a doubt I can help Jeff with? I'd be able to just knock his socks off because I do so well. And then think about those 3 words that anybody would use to describe your company. So are you energetic? Do people say when you walk in the room, you just light things up? Think about those words that people would really use to describe you. And if you have a tough time with that, again, sit down with people you trust. I would sit down with your friends, your close friends, or your family that are going to be very honest with you, very candid, but kind.
Right.
Of course, and find out, get their feedback. It's really a fun process to go through to hear how people view you, how they see you. I did this with quite a few different people as I was building out my company. And I've done this a couple of times, and it always makes me laugh because I will see myself one way, and my husband, of course, is like, I don't see that at all.
Right. That could be a good and bad thing. But I mean, asking your friends, I think, and colleagues, and, a lot of times we're really hesitant. Oh, we can't. But the things with social media, I mean, technically you and Peg and Elisa and we all are in the same business, but we really do collaborate. We really talk. And I know if I have hey, is this a good idea? I know that you won't, one, shoot it down, but you'll go, oh, that is, or why don't you try it this way? And I think that collaboration is really huge. And I actually have an Evernote document where I have, when people have posted stuff on social media after I've talked, or when I do something, that they it's kind of my encouragement. I go back and look at it and see, oh, I guess I am okay. But I can use that.
I love that though. Yeah.
But you can see a pattern too, and you're going, okay, they really like that I explain this well, so I must be able to explain things well. So how can I use that in my business? So I think that's something you can do, just kind of practical as well.
I love that. I think that's for the exact reasons you just mentioned. Obviously, not every day is sunshine and roses. I know that's shocking, but it's true. Yeah. But it is. It's great for those days where you need a little encouragement. But I think from your point, it's a very data-driven way to look at how am I doing? What are those things that people say consistently I'm really good at, and then how can I leverage that? How can I get better within that area, so improve upon that, or how could I take that and utilize that within my business to help other people? And I think that's the beauty in being a small business owner or entrepreneur too, is you can be very agile in that sense, where if something's working within your business, why not take that and show somebody else how to do that? So really understanding what those unique skills and qualities are that people really, really love about you. There's just so many different benefits to that.
Yeah. I wanted to do a shout out to this local company that is here that does, you talk about outshining the competition, and I think they do it so well. They're actually a snow cone. They're called Shivers, and they make snow cones out of a Airstream trailer, which is really cool. But at the end of the day, and they're killing it on Instagram. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is because they sell out every day. They have a sign that says sold out, and they have a little kid standing there, and it's a new kid every day holding the last ice cream cone or the last snow cone and taking a picture of that and posting it on their social. And I just think that's a genius way,
Yeah.
to one, scarcity is
Right.
great. Get there early, you got to get that, but they're using it and leveraging on social, and they do just such a good job. And just from here in Longview, Texas, they're just killing it. There's lines now every night. And that's one way I think people can think creatively and try to, outshine their competition. So very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, the creativity, it really does. It creates that line in the sand, I think, between you and everybody else over here that's doing the same old thing,
Right.
where for lack of a better phrase, because I know we all hate it now, but you're thinking outside the box. You're
Right.
getting outside of those preset limitations that I think a lot of times we set on ourselves too, where it's like, oh, well, everybody's done this. There's nothing new. I'm not going to be able to create anything that somebody else hasn't already done. But you can, because you're unique. You're you, and you can put your own spin on something just like that, which is brilliant.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost them anything real
Right.
at all. And the kids are fighting to get to be that last person. So I just think it's genius all the way around. So, well, let's move on. I just finished this book called The 12-Week Year, which is an excellent book, and it talks a lot about measuring your goals, and you talk about that a lot as well. So, how do and we talked about the shiny new thing syndrome, but also, when we start writing out our goals, we can get overwhelmed. If you write out, okay, I need to post this much on Facebook, I need to engage this much, and you all of a sudden your task lists, and you kind of get into vapor lock where I don't know what to do. So how do you limit and really focus on the goals that are going to move your business kind of to the next level? So what are some suggestions that way?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it's getting clear on why you're using social media in the first place. I think too often, especially for us as early adopters, we just jumped on social media. We were like, what is this?
Right.
And we didn't really have a whole lot of goals at the onset, except, hey, I'm going to be able to make a whole lot of connections.
Right.
But today we have that opportunity to really get crystal clear on why am I using social media and how is it going to support the overall growth of my business? So first think about, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Do you want to build brand awareness? Do you want to create authority within your space? Do you want to familiarize people with your product or your service? Just like we were just talking about with that local example, do you want to use social media and live video, just like we're doing here today, to be able to connect people to your brand? So first and foremost, it's understanding why you're using it, because that's where the disconnect comes from. That's where I'm on social media, but I'm not getting the ROI, I'm not getting the results I want, comes in. And it's because you didn't sit down and clearly define where you were headed with social media in the first place. So start there. Really understand. And if it's just awareness and engagement at first, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with growing into a social media strategy. I think that's the other aspect of it too, is we think, oh my God, I got to do it all and I have to do it right now. And I know nothing about that, being a type A personality. So So, I totally get that
Right.
desire to make everything happen right this second. And so I would really encourage people to, if you're just dipping your toe into social media or really setting goals, start small. Start with those smaller goals of, okay, I want to achieve, and I'll give you some examples of what some of these might look like. And of course, it's really going to depend on whether you have a budget for social media too. Being the CMO of a bootstrapped company where everything we do is organic, my thought always immediately goes to, how can we utilize content marketing, and how can we best get our message out there without a huge marketing budget? So your goals may be that you want to increase the quality of the content that you're putting out across social media, and then just chunk that down. So chunk that down into, so what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? How will I improve the content quality that I'm putting out there? Well, it might be that I'm hiring a VA to help me hand curate 5 pieces of just quality content on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it's that I'm going to build relationships with 10 influencers, and I'm going to share 5 of their posts on a daily basis. So just get really granular down into the day-to-day of how are you going to push that goal forward. And we look at it from an objective and key results. So your objective is that big, bold goal that is going to really push you forward. And then your key objectives are, what do I have to focus on every single day so I don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome and derail myself?
Right. And so, I mean, I remember when I first started, I got to I just wanted to create a piece of content a week, and that was it. And so I started really small. I was like, I'm going to really try just to get, one piece of content out. And when I did that, I felt good. And then I, eventually ramped it up and did more. And so I think your point about starting small, but having a measurable goal that you can try to hit is very important as well. So, do you do anything are there like tools that you like to use to like track and measure your goals for social media? Or do you just old fashioned and write it out and have a little checklist by it? How do you do it?
Yeah, no matter how much I've tried, and I love tools, don't get me wrong, I use them every day. I come back to collaboration within Google with my team. So we use Google Sheets and Google Docs for just about everything. So I've created an entire metrics dashboard. And this is something that I'm actually going to be offering in an upcoming course that I'm putting together that will help you measure those metrics that are most important to your company. But yeah, I take it back to simplicity. If it's a tool that is forcing you to spend an inordinate amount of time learning it, spending too much time in it on a day-to-day basis, you need to chuck it because you need to be focused on your highest and best. And those are typically, your sales opportunities that are going to generate revenue for your business. So keep it simple. Like I said, I'm just a huge fan of Google Sheets, and it's just so simple to build out those key metrics, whether they're social media related, website, blog. You can keep it all right there in one location, and then just collect those, throughout the week.
Yeah, and something that can be shared easily, and also is you can have on all your devices, I think is key. And then my thing is do the one that you like to use. I mean, I have one for my my task list is Todoist, and I love it because it I can yell at Alexa and she'll add it to my to-do list, which I think is really, really cool. So, well, I think it's whatever you use that works for you, and does, like you said, you don't spend like gobs of time messing around and bragging.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah. Find what works and stick with it.
Exactly. So, you mentioned another thing in your book about a different kind of goal that I hadn't really heard of before, but when I thought about it, I was like, well, I do that, but it's a stretch goal. So can you explain what you mean by a stretch goal and why it's important to have them?
Yeah, so stretch goal is really one of those goals that, when achieved, would just blow your mind. You would be like, okay, never in a million years did I think I could ever achieve that. It's, what we've called for many, many years that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal, where
Right.
it makes your tummy kind of, feel queasy, and you get scared half to death thinking, how in the world am I going to make this happen? But it's a goal that, when you accomplish it, you are going to be high-fiving yourself for days,
Right.
because it's something that is directly aligned with what you're looking to achieve. So it does have to be very strategic in that sense. We can tend to get derailed as creatives and look at, oh, but it's pretty and shiny and exciting, and run off
Yeah.
in that direction. So you do have to get very clear on what you're looking to achieve, and then just up your game. You're just going to level that up by about 100%. And at first, when I first started doing these a few years ago with the Post Planner team, I would just laugh. I'm like, oh, there's
Right.
no way. There is
Right.
no way we're doing this. And yet that was the fun in it, of how in the world are we going to make this happen?
Mm.
And if you are a part of a team, I cannot begin to tell you what it does to synergize and really energize your team, bringing everybody together, working towards that same goal.
Yeah, I think that's key. And Pat Flynn made a good point about, and he called it something different than stretch goals, but these big, crazy goals. That's where stuff happens.
It
That's
is.
where
Yeah.
that's every time something good happens to me personally, and Pat even talked about his own personal experiences, is when something was scary and was really hard to do. And those sounds like the stretch goals,
Yeah.
and that's you know getting and doing a show or a podcast. That was mine. It's different for everybody else. I think that it might be doing one live video. That might be a huge stretch for somebody.
Yeah.
And so I think, but that's when awesome stuff happens and those opportunities come, I think, in your business, is when you
Couldn't agree
try those.
more.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I'll just caution one more time,
mhm,
because it's very easy to get caught up in the latest and greatest and think, well, everybody says I should be doing this.
right.
But just be very, very careful that there is a purpose and a strategy behind that stretch goal. So for you, I mean, you're such, and of course, Pat is too, such
Mhm.
terrific examples of taking that fear and just beating it down.
Right.
And look what it's done
Right.
to elevate your brand, to create awareness around your brand. Look at the doors of opportunity that have swung wide open because of that. So that's why I say I really caution that you're not running down and chasing this, big, hairy, audacious goal that, at the end of the day, where's it going to get you?
Right. And I think here's a good point, because you and I both have talked about this before too, is, Snapchat was cool.
Mm,
2 years ago, that was what everybody was talking about, like at social media marketing world. It was all Snapchat. You have to do Snapchat. Well, you and some other people, you looked at it and you could talk about it intelligently, but you didn't pour everything into building your Snapchat presence, because you
right.
know what worked for you, and you knew that blogging and that the stuff you were doing was really working. And so you were like, it's cool, but it's not for my audience. And I think that is a good example, because, it's still going strong for that demographic, but most of our peers are kind of like, I can concentrate on something else.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of time wasted if you would have gone down that road and it didn't matter. So
Yeah,
I just,
that's an excellent point. You do have to be very, very clear about where you're going to spend your time, how you're going to spend your time, and if those goals are aligned with your overall strategy. I'll tell you, to this day, I feel like I have just perfected and perfected and perfected my own productivity. But to this day, I have to get just stern with myself of every day, what are those two big things that
mhm,
absolutely have to get done, and then everything else kind of falls behind that, because otherwise, yeah, we're binging all over the place and spending our time on things that just, quite frankly, don't deserve our attention.
Right. Right. Well, here's something that probably does need to deserve our attention, and I know I need to work on it myself. But you have a chapter about the importance of creating a great profile on the different networks, and you even dropped some tips from our friend Peg Fitzpatrick in there. And so, why is a great profile on your social media platforms so important?
Well, it's really the first place that people are going to land. It's the first place that they're looking to figure out, if they're on Twitter, if they want to follow you, if they're on Facebook, if they want to like your page, if they want to connect with you. And it's such an underutilized piece of real estate, in my opinion. You mentioned Google Plus, and it's still, I think, an important place that at least you've built out your profile, because there's just all these different areas across the web that you want to ensure that no matter where people are finding you and connecting with you, you're just instantly recognizable. They know who you are because you're using that consistent profile picture. You've talked about the same things within your bio. So you've shared with people your story, you've shared with them, what problems you solve, what solutions you provide, you've shared with them, just all those things that are going to be really critical to them making an informed decision about working with you. And I think too often we shy away from that. Again, it goes back to, I don't know how to talk about myself. I don't know what I should say.
Right.
And I get it. It can be very, very difficult to write a bio about yourself. I've been doing marketing. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now, and it's never the easiest thing in the world to do, to write about yourself. So no matter how many times you do it, it's still a challenge to kind of pat yourself on the back and talk about those things that you've done that really make you stand out. But that's what's really critical, I think, is back to your earlier point too, of how do you shine online? How do you stand out? It is those little nuggets that you talk about yourself that will be those connectors for people to just instantly identify with you and understand what your value is and how you're going to be able to help their business. Obviously, that's just so critical too, so that they're self-selecting into your product or service.
That's a great point. I think it's also important too to write your profile so you don't sound like a jerk. Don't use the word ninja or guru in your profile, because that is just, I don't know. So and it is hard. And just like we mentioned before, I usually, when I write a profile, I either send it to you, Peg, or Lisa, or Mike Alton, or somebody, and go, hey, does this me? Or does this sound right? And there's always tweaks. So that's when, again, collaboration is huge on that kind of stuff. So and I know a lot of people struggle with, creating the right image for their brand. And I know this ties into how to stand out, like we mentioned earlier. And you have always nailed your look and feel. So kind of take us back and tell us how you developed that. I know it's been a process, but kind of a bird's eye view, how did that come about, your branding?
Well, over time, like you said, it definitely evolved. But for me, it was starting out with really identifying what I wanted my brand to represent. And because it's a personal brand and an extension of me, it needed to be very true to my personality. And so for me, it was first nailing down the color scheme. So what was going to be my primary and my secondary and my tertiary colors, and figuring out how those were all going to combine and support one another. And so once I figured out the orange, and that has stuck with me since day one, then it was figuring out, and let me back up just a step, because orange really tells the story in and of itself, and so does every color. So if you're just at those beginning stages and figuring out, what is my brand color, think about what is that color representing. And so orange is energetic, it's lively, it's fun, and I hopefully that's exactly how my
Right.
brand comes across.
Right.
But I felt those were very true, to my personality. And so you got to think about, if maybe you're an attorney, maybe black being stability and really that professional look and feel might be the color
Right.
you want to go with, or blue, which is calming, or green, which is definitely aligned with nature, or money. You see that a lot in the mortgage
Right.
world. So think about how that color is going to best represent your brand everywhere. So both online and offline. And then it's figuring out everything else that kind of falls into that, which is your fonts, your messaging, so your tone of voice, and thinking about again, is your brand very serious? Are the conversations you're having that very serious tone that people need to understand that when they're reaching out to you, it's not going to be fun and games and goofy memes.
Right.
So think about how you're going to get your message across as well. I see again a big disconnect in this area where people just can't figure out how to translate who they are. Maybe they're an established business and they're translating that online, or they're a personal brand and they're trying to bring all that they are
Right.
into the online world. And it's just, I think Peg has said this probably 100 bazillion times, and it's so true. But when you are honest about who you are, that just reflects into everything you do, and it just makes life so easy. And so I would just again challenge people to don't feel as if you need to build this persona around you. Just pull from your core values, from what makes you you, and everything that you believe in and you've infused into your business. And your brand will just naturally and organically start to build out from that. It's definitely a process. It's a process I take a lot of people through consultations, and it's so much fun.
Right.
Because it's almost that enlightenment of,
Right.
oh my gosh, I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that I'm more a blue person than I am a green, or
Right.
pink is so not my color. For Peg, pink is, oh my gosh, she couldn't have nailed, a better color if she tried. So it's just, it's really figuring out what the essence of your business is, and then using your brand to amplify that across all of your social channels, but obviously your website and your blog as well.
Yeah, and I think you can be professional but still have fun. And I think that's why, like
Mm.
you and other and Peg have succeeded, is because you have a very professional, very well designed brand, but there's still some. It's like you said, it's you. There's some playful aspects about it, and you're just I use your pins as an example in some of my talks of you're always testing things, but your brand is always consistent. So yes, the girl may change her hair color sometimes in those pins that go through, and or
Yes.
or she may be gone completely, and there may be a rocket ship. But that
Yeah.
core color and the core playfulness and look and feel is constant no matter what, even when you're testing stuff. So, what would you tell brands who or businesses who they're like, I'm tired of what I made, and maybe I made a mistake. I want to refresh.
Yeah.
So how can they go about doing that and still you don't want to lose your audience when you refresh, but how can you maybe even grow your audience when you're doing like a brand refresh?
Oh, well, I think there are so many fun ways that you can do that. And a great way is getting your audience involved. So, do some mock-ups of your new design or your new
Mm.
logo and ask them, do you like this one or do you like this one? And as you're talking about, are we more playful and fun, or are we more serious, and our tone, definitely takes on something a little bit less goofy on a daily
Right, right.
basis. Ask your audience,
Mhm.
because again, I think this goes back to what I was talking about earlier too, which is how you see yourself and not necessarily how others see you. So it can be very enlightening, just to ask those questions and to get them involved in that process too does several different things. First of all, there's buy-in, where all of a sudden, they're excited about being able to have a voice
Mhm.
and take part in being a part of your transformation. And then they're also going to be excited when you start to drip out different pieces of that. So maybe you share with them your new blog design, or you give them a sneak peek into the new design of your app, whatever that is. Just involving them in that entire process creates this situation where now they're rallying around you. They're excited to support you. They're excited to share it on social media. They're excited to become a part of spreading the news on your behalf. So they become that extension, that marketing extension of your business. So I would definitely, don't be afraid to make that transformation. I think there are so many times where either, our businesses evolve over time,
Mhm.
and likewise, our audiences change as we evolve. And there's always an opportunity. We've gone through this a couple of times at Post Planner of redesign. And so there's always a chance to reinvent yourself and
Right.
take your audience along on the ride with you to do that.
Lisa says in the comments, she goes, "I always know your pins, Rebecca, even the very old ones." So yeah, so
Yes, even those
very,
big,
very
ugly old ones.
cool.
Sometimes I
We all
look at it, I'm like, oh,
I
so
know,
bad.
but then
But
you see
that's
the
the idea.
repins. You're like,
Yes,
I gotta leave them. I gotta leave them.
I
Yeah.
know. Can't touch
So
them.
yeah. So we teased in the title here the formula for high performing social content. Now, is that only content that goes viral, or so? What do you consider high performing? So I think that some people may be confused, especially just getting started. They want their video to go viral. Well, I've gotten a lot of jobs after or contacts with people who led to paid jobs from a video that's only maybe 200 people have seen. So what do you consider high performing?
Yeah. Well, and that's a terrific point, because it goes back to know your goals. So high performing content could be your high traffic content, on your website or your blog. So it's that evergreen piece of content, that piece of content that today, tomorrow, 2 years from now, is still going to be relevant to your audience and still bringing traffic over to your website. It could be high converting content. So it could
Mhm.
be content that it just continues to convert leads into sales or readers into subscribers. So again, goes back to knowing what you're trying to achieve with your content. It could also be on social, highly engaging content. So that content that is getting those likes, those shares, those retweets, just time and time and time again. And I consistently go back through my content. We A/B test, just about every piece of content, both in the messaging. So, for example, we'll use the headline, the title from a blog post versus a quote
Mm.
from the blog post, and we'll see which one performs better. And then that one gets put, on repeat, where it just goes out. And there are those pieces of content that no matter, how many times over how many years you share that
Right.
content, it just gets shared like crazy.
Yeah.
So know your goals and understand how those conversions, or how that traffic, or how those likes all play into supporting you hitting those every single week or every single month.
Very cool. So You know, we both love visual content. So, what are some tips that you have for taking existing visual content and maybe tweaking it to perform better?
Ooh, such a fun question. So many different ways we can go with that,
Hmm.
right? It's back to the branding aspect where you can tweak everything from your color scheme, how dominant your main color plays. I think I've talked to you about this where
Hmm.
I've tested my orange, and a solid orange background performs poorly for me, very, very
Mm.
bad. Where just that clean, more white space with the orange in there does very well. So testing out variations of your branding colors. Also, elements are a great way to test too. One element as, just that one main focal point, as
Hmm.
opposed to having a little bit busier amount of elements within that. Or it could be more a lifestyle feel with your images as opposed to a vector type of graphic. So
Gotcha.
there's a lot of different ways that you can test out that content, and especially in the early days, is figuring out what your audience responds to, what gets them to actually click, what gets
Right.
them to share. And I will tell you that it's going to be different across every social network. It's very different on Pinterest as opposed to Twitter or Facebook. And especially if you're running ads on
Mm.
Facebook, you're really going to have to test then, because I have found that what works in just the newsfeed as opposed to an ad is very, very different for my brand and others. So don't be afraid to get out there and test a variety of elements, just to really get a strong hypothesis and then that data to back that up into what works, and then repeat it over
Mm.
and over. And I think that's the other thing too people forget, Jeff, is that it's not a one and done. You
Right.
don't just
Right.
throw it out there once and it's
Right.
like, well, let's try again.
Right.
Once you find something that works, put that process in place and just do
Mhm.
it over and over and over, so you do become that recognizable brand.
So when I know we've talked about this before, but you split test and with the girl on your images and then without, and I've noticed even with on Post Planner, they have a very distinct style as well. Did you guys test? It's kind of that hand drawn, some of it.
Yep.
Look, did you guys test that a lot before you launched kind of that visual campaign? I guess.
Yeah, we really did, and because we made a huge move from where we were, and
Hmm.
it was a lot of testing involved. Because I'll tell you, we were a little nervous about it, that it just wouldn't translate.
Hmm.
But for us, it was all a part of the graduation of the brand
Right. Right.
too, where we were moving people into higher level content, kind of a higher level thought process, higher level strategies. So there was that idea behind it too. We really wanted everything to support that overall goal. And so, yeah, you have to think about what do you like, but more importantly, what is your audience like? What is going to perform well? So, again, going back to putting it out there and asking your audience, asking for their feedback. We did a lot of that, of which one feels more like our brand, which one says to you, XYZ, whatever it is that you're looking to achieve with your content. Because if people are like, and we got a lot of that in the early days. It was gosh, we spent months on our final iteration, which you see
Mm.
now, which is very hand drawn.
Right.
But it even came down to, which as a designer, the thickness of
Right. Right.
the pen and the pencil that they were using, to the thickness of the font was too much. It was too
Right.
bold or too abrasive or too in your face.
And that stuff
There's so
makes a
much.
difference. And the thing is, when you're split testing that, you only can do so much at a time, or you'll get lost in the process. So okay, now we're just going to test the thickness of the font and run with that for a while. Because if you do too much stuff at once, then you get all skewed and you can't find out what worked or not. So that's really important as well. So
yeah, very true.
so let's say we've created some high performing content. So how can we automate some of this process? Because as much as I like social media, I can't be on 24/7 all the
What?
time. I know
No,
it
come
it
on.
seems like I am. So what are some of your tactics and tips that you use to automate some of this stuff?
Yeah, so I have been for years a huge fan of both Post Planner and Sprout Social. Post Planner is they do very different things in this sense. Where Post Planner helps me find terrific content, it helps me consolidate all of my favorite authors. So I have you and Peg and so many others, Elisa, in a folder where instead of me having to run around all over the web trying to remember, oh, maybe Jeff posted today, I should go find that.
Right.
It just automatically pulls it in and then it scores it on top of that. So it's scoring it for virality and it's going to push it up to the top. So I can just go through and boom, 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 I can schedule out some of your content. And then with Sprout Social, I can monitor, I can listen. So I can listen to keywords, I can listen to all of those mentions of the brand, making it very easy for me to quickly get in and engage on a daily basis. And then another one of my absolute, and it's a newer favorite tool, is Brand 24, which Brand 24 is also a monitoring tool. But what I love about it is that it sends me alerts, and it's I love their emails. Rebekah, storm alert, which means you have a lot of conversation going on.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
And it monitors all channels across the web, but it allows me in 5 minutes to come in and just boom, boom, boom. And for those companies that are looking to do influencer marketing, oh my gosh, I think it's an invaluable tool because you can actually filter by influence. So yeah, you could filter by a 7 to a 10 on the influencer scale to really identify as a brand who those people are that are engaging with your brand on a consistent basis, and go out there and thank them or send them a little care package or whatever it is. So yeah, that's another one of my favorite tools.
I use Agora Pulse because I love it because it's like an inbox for all my social stuff. And so I even use it for my clients because I can go once a day and go, okay, I need to respond to this or have, for them. So those are invaluable when you start scaling your business. So speaking of scaling, when is it time for a business? And I know you and I have both been in this situation before, especially like solopreneurs or personal brands, to think of hiring help. Like even if it's just a VA, when do you start looking at, okay, I want to have some breathing room. I want to have some vacation. When is that time to do that? And when, and what tasks should you start with delegating out to other people?
Yeah. To that, I would say almost immediately. If you're in it to make money, and I'm assuming that most people are, you have got to focus on your highest and best. You have got to focus on those 3 to 5 things that you cannot delegate to anybody else. So, is it writing content? Is it doing videos? What are those things that you absolutely cannot give away and are so critical to the growth of your business? Maybe it's consultations, meeting with clients, whatever that looks like for you, write it down. Write down what those things are that you cannot give away. And then everything else has got to go. Everything else has to be given away. I have had the same. I've worked with the same assistant, and now I've had the same team for, oh my goodness, 5 years. But they're invaluable. When you find people that do things better than you, and every single one of them does, where I've plugged them into those areas where we're all supporting each other. We're all helping each other to that end goal. All of a sudden, your time is freed up to where you don't feel like you're running around like, a crazy person trying to get everything done. Okay, I lied. That never fully goes away, right?
Right, it doesn't. Yeah.
you're,
Right.
you're always feeling a little
Right.
crazy. But at least if you're performing at your highest level. And that's really what VAs do. And so my team, both on Post Planner and my team personally, we're spread out in 9 different countries. So you don't have to have somebody sitting there in, within your vicinity, your backyard, to be successful. They just need to be really, really good at what it is you need them to do. And I also would really caution that you don't try to fit somebody into a one size fits all, to where you think, oh, this person is amazing, and so they're going to be able to do this and this and this and this. It's just not realistic. There's not many people that do everything really well, no matter how many times we'd like to believe that we do. But so I think it's being really honest with yourself about what is it I need to focus on every day, where is it that I kind of suck and I need help. And who are those people that when I plug them in, they're going to allow me to run 100 times faster. So they're duplicators. They duplicate they're allowing you to duplicate your efforts within your business, but they're also accelerators where they're allowing you to move at a lightning pace.
I think that's great advice. I think if there's anything, it's like what you said about doing it now when you first start, because it's really hard to let stuff go. But once you do, there's huge amount of freedom.
So much freedom in it.
And then you can see, and you can start strategizing and using those assets or whatever those people are creating for you in better ways. And I think, I wish I would have started a lot sooner than what I did. So,
but that's okay. There's always time to start, and there's always time to take a step back. And for me, it's always, as my husband says, take your hands off the wheel. You don't have to control everything. And there's always an opportunity to do that, and just really define what it is that is most important to you, and find those great people. There's so many people out there that do amazing work. And they just need to find the right person to come alongside and work alongside. And those people, in my opinion, are invaluable. My team is invaluable because they allow me to get out there and do what I love to do, and I allow them to do what they love to do every single day. So if you're thinking that you're either holding yourself back by not doing it all, or you're putting too much on somebody else, recognize those are probably things you hate anyway that you're trying to do, and there's somebody that absolutely loves doing that stuff.
That's what accountants, perfect example.
Yes.
That is the thing. Don't even mess with that stuff with me. So, well, I want to get to, there's a question from Jack. I want to ask you, because he put this in earlier, and it's, where do you see Facebook chatbots playing a role in a company's social media strategy? And what are you doing to implement this new technology into your arsenal of marketing techniques and tactics? In addition to that, what are some of the KPIs that you think are vital that you see so many people overlooking?
I think that's something we have to be very, very careful with. To me, it's an emerging technology. So it's not going to be for everybody. Again, it's a shiny object that could definitely derail people. I am very excited about it. I see huge opportunities for, let's say that infopreneur that's creating products out there and looking to connect with people through chatbots. So I think it's very important, again, that it's aligned with your strategy, that it supports what you're trying to achieve. But I have absolutely no problems in testing it out, because I think given the right scenario and the right situation, it could be a huge, huge win for a business. But again, it goes back to also being very careful that you're not burning your audience out in one particular area too. You're not beating them over the head with your content. And to me, it always goes back to asking their permission and making sure that it's all permission based, that you're not, just shoving content down their throat. And we're not putting ourselves back into another scenario where it just becomes a spammy channel. And we're all going to tune it out and stop listening pretty quickly. So I think we have to be very cautious.
Very, very good points. I actually have a chatbot on Mainly Pinterest Tips Facebook page that was an experiment. And it's really cool because people can ask it, and see a menu system of when our next show is. And it can do some fun things too. So if you're there, ask it, how manly are you? And you'll get a different response every time. So it's very, very cool. And I think for customer service, some of that stuff can really help. As long as you go back in there and follow up in a real voice and not just always use canned responses, I think. And you talked about that in your book as well. So the other question he had, what are the KPIs that you think are vital that you see so many people overlooking? And I think we kind of answered some of those today. But is there anything else that just comes to mind that you think people are really overlooking?
I think it really just goes back to knowing what you're trying to achieve, because too often people are chasing the wrong metric. And if you're chasing the wrong metric, you're going to wonder why you're never achieving the results that you're hoping to achieve, whether that's in social media, whether that's revenue based, whatever the case may be. So just be very honest with yourself as you're putting these KPIs together, that are these those vanity metrics that might look good. For example, I want to double my amount of followers, on my Facebook page. Well, okay, great. That sounds like a terrific goal, but what are you going to get with that? So if you can't clearly say, well, because of that, I'm actually going to I'm going to double my conversion rate. I'm going to double my conversion rate from leads to sales. I'm going to double, my revenue, my sales revenue over the next year. Then it's not going to do you any good. So it's really being crystal clear on what you're trying to get out of that particular goal and whether it's serving your ultimate purpose.
Very, very cool. Thanks for that. Thanks for that question, Jack. Last question, Rebekah, where can people find you online? What's the best place to get you?
Best place is RebekahRadice.com. And even if you spell it wrong, you'll still find me. Because, of course, my parents could not make my spelling easy.
Right.
And then you can find me anywhere on social at Rebekah Radice. So you name it, Facebook, Twitter, you mentioned Google Plus, still over there, Instagram, so just about anywhere you look, you just Google my name and you will find me.
Awesome. And as always, we'd love for you guys to visit mainlypinteresttips.com, click on the sidebar, and subscribe to our email community so you'll never miss a great guest like we had with Rebekah today. Because at Mainly Pinterest Tips, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. See you next time, everybody. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Rebekah. Bye.
Thank you.